Hey guys, welcome back. In today's video, I'll be going over some sanding tips for your scroll saw words. Today, I will be sanding 1/2 inch MDF. The products that I'll be using today are my micro sander. It comes with a variety of different grit sandpapers. I will be using my sanding files and a sandpaper disc. Step number 1 in a good finish starts with your sanding. So sanding is really important in any project. If I'm sanding MDF, I always start with a 180 grit sandpaper. If I'm sanding something like pine or birch, I always start with something a little higher, like 240. When sanding, you always want to sand over a surface. I always use something like an old sheet or a blanket to protect my surface. After you've spent so much time cutting out these pieces, you definitely don't want to drop one and possibly have it break. So I always sand it over a table with something soft below it. Now that I have my 180 grit sandpaper on here, I'm going to flip these over and I'm going to go over the back side. If you are cutting with a nice sharp blade, this shouldn't be too much of a problem, but sometimes there can be a little fray on the back, so I'm just going to go ahead and take that off if there is any on there. Now that I've touched the back side, I'm going to flip them over and focus on all my interior cuts. For something small like this, you definitely can't fit sandpaper in there, so this is what the files are great for hard to reach areas. So I'm just going to use this. After I've finished all my interior cuts, I just focus on my sides. Where I can reach, I use this micro sander. All I'm looking for is any spots that look like they need sanding. With your script, it sometimes can be hard to reach certain areas. That is where something like a sanding disc can come in handy. You can just fold it in half, or you could do the same thing with your little sandpaper, depending on what size you're dealing with. And this really helps you to get in those tight spots. I don't always use the sanding disc. This is something that I typically use if I'm sanding something a bit larger. Then this is when I would use those. I am now ready to move on to the face, which is, in my opinion, the most important. MDF can be a little difficult to get a good smooth finish. Once you peel off that pattern, it kind of leaves all these little dents, and that's what we're going to focus on sanding out today. If I think that the piece is large enough and stable enough, sometimes I just take a palm sander and just use it on the surface. But if it's a smaller, more delicate piece, I wouldn't do something like that. I would definitely use my micro sander. I think that these letters here could handle a palm sander, but for the purpose of this video, I'll be using the mini micro sander. You really want to put some elbow grease into it. For MDF, you definitely want to get all those cracks and crannies smoothed out. I should also mention that it's very important to wear something like a respirator when doing something like this or any type of woodworking project. Once you think that it's close enough, I go ahead and just blow it off. I keep my DeWalt Drob Sight blower always close by, and I just use it to brush off my stuff. If there are any spots that you miss, they're gonna show up when you go to paint these. So you wanna make sure that you got it nice and smooth. Now that your surfaces are ready, now I take it a step further, and on the edges I just give it a slight round over. This does add a little bit of time on your project, but I promise you it is so worth it. So I'm just gonna take this at a slight angle and just go over all my edges. One thing that I failed to mention was that this flower here, I had sanded previously. I used my Dremel tool with a couple different attachments to sand and shape this. Now that my words are all sanded and ready to finish, I'm going to go ahead and put them in my box flat. I like to keep these around the shop to store each sign in their own separate box flat, and this is just where I keep them in between finishing steps. Sanding can be one of those least favorite shop tasks. I know for me it is, but when you look at your finished product, it's also very rewarding. This sign is also a great reminder that no matter big or small, all of our prayers are heard by God. I hope that you found this video helpful. If you did, go ahead and give me a big thumbs up or leave a comment below. Everything that I used in today's video, including the paint colors on this sign, will all be in links in the description below. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button to stay up to date with all my latest projects, tips, or to be inspired. You can also follow me on Facebook and Instagram at Stronger by Grace Designs. See you next time!